My parents were into every kind of music, including early rap. I remember them playing songs like King Tim the Third by the Fatback Band, and of course, Rapper's Delight, the first rap song to really break out nationally and internationally. But while millions of people loved it, including 9-year-old me, it drove the serious rappers of 1979 absolutely crazy. Rappers had been growing their art for years before this so called first rap song appeared. MCs were tight when they heard it, not just because the lyrics were lightweight, but because the MCs on the record were considered to be whack no names. Whole chunks of the song were completely bitten. Big Bank Hank not only stole Grandmaster Caz's lyrics for his part in the song, he didn't even bother to change the part where he spells out his name. Check it out. I'm the CASAN, the OVA. But it was a major hit and it created the first real crossroads in the story of hip hop. Some rappers got angry about the commercializing of their culture. Other people saw it as an opportunity. If a group like the Sugar Hill Gang could have a hit, then that meant that there was a real audience out there for hip hop. Russell Simmons was in a club with some of the pioneers of hip hop when he first heard Rapper's Delight, and like them, was surprised that the first hip hop hit came from a group of outsiders. But he did his homework on it and went gold with Curtis Blow, formed Run DMC, managed the Fat Boys and Houdini, and launched Def Jam, dominating hip hop for the next 2 decades. A lot of other people in that room that night never got paid for the art form they helped invent and are still nursing a grudge against the people who did. It's a recurring story in hip hop, the tension between art and commerce. Hip hop is too important as a tool of expression to just be reduced to a commercial product. But what some people call commercializing really means is that lots of people buy and listen to your records. That was always the point to me. After my first record got on the radio and on BET, it was wild being at home feeding my fish and suddenly seeing myself on TV. But it was satisfying. Hearing it on the radio was even better. There may be some artists who don't believe in radio, especially now, because the radio business is such a shady racket. But radio love puts you in the hood for real. I care if regular people, sisters on their way to work, dudes rolling around in their cars, hear my shit. I'm a music head, so I listen to everything. People around me are passionate about music. We study music, seek it out. I know there are a million music blogs out there and people who are willing to put in the work finding new music on them. But I like to reach people who get their music from clubs and the radio and television too. I want my music to play where those people live. While there's something intensely personal about what I rap about, I also make choices in techniques and styles to make sure that it can touch as many people as possible without it losing its basic integrity. There are sometimes two JayZs when you look at my music. There's the one who can drop a big pimpin' or I just wanna love you, give it to me. Songs that are intended for wide audiences, designed to just get listeners high off the sheer pleasure of them. And then there are the deeper album cuts, which are more complicated. The entire package is what makes an album. I think it's worth it to try to find that balance. It's like life. Sometimes you just want to dumb out in the club. Other times you want to get real and go deep. Even then, the idea some people have of dumbing down is based on a misperception of what a great rap song can do. A great song can be dumbed down in the sense that it appeals to a pretty low common denominator. A big chorus and a great beat and easy to follow lyrics can get you a hit. But even then, there's an art to combining those elements. But that's not the whole story. A great hit can also give listeners a second layer and then a third and more. The song that's probably the biggest hit in my career so far, Empire State of Mind, is a great example of how this can work. On the dumb side, it's driven by Al Shucks's incredible track, Alicia Keys' giant arc of a hook, and my in the pocket flow. Those are completely universal in their appeal. The next layer down is the storytelling. For a hit song, the narratives are pretty ambiguous. They're about loving a city for all the regular guidebook stuff, the Yankees, the Statue of Liberty, etc., but also recognizing it as the place where I used to cop in Harlem and have a stash spot where I cooked up work like a pastry. There's a great tension between the anthemic even hopeful chorus, and the lines about the gang of niggas rolling with my clique and corners where we selling rocks, and the story of girls who come to the city of sin and get turned out. And for the hip hop heads who come looking for technique, it's got all kinds of sneaky Easter eggs if you're a close listener. The way I played with the flow on, and in the winter gets cold, in Vogue with your skin out, to make it to also make it sound like a reference to Anna Wintour, the editor of Vogue, which conjures the image of glossy fashion as a counterpoint to the literal meaning of the line. The way I turn the old cliche about New York being a melting pot into a fresh reference to the drug game. The way I use the punchy sonic similarity between bus trip, bust out, and bus route to amplify a metaphor about getting sexually exploited. Even little shit, the special ed shout out or the line about LeBron James and Dwayne Wade forces you to keep listening beyond the dumb elements. And then there are the bits of snap philosophy. Jesus can't save you. Life starts when the church ends. And punchlines with new slang like, nigga, I be spiked out. I could trip a referee. It's a trick I learned from all the greatest MCs. A dumbed down record actually forces you to be smarter, to balance art, craft, authenticity, and accessibility. When I first heard the track for Empire, I was sure it would be a hit. It was gorgeous. My instinct was to dirty it up, to tell stories of the city's gritty side, to use stories about hustling and getting hustled to add tension to the soaring beauty of the chorus. The same thing happened with another big hit, A Hard Knock Life. The chorus is a sweet sounding children's song, but the lyrics are adult, violent, and real. Knowing how to complicate a simple song without losing its basic appeal is one of the keys to good songwriting. Let me handle my business. Damn. The other part of commercialization is the idea that artists should be only thinking about their art, not about the business side of what we do. There was maybe a time when people in hip hop made music only because they loved to make music. But the time came when it started to pay off, to the point that even dudes in the street started thinking, fuck selling drugs. This rap shit is going to be my hustle. A lot of people came to hip hop like that, not out of a pure love of music, but as a legit hustle, another path out of the hood. I've reflected some of that in my music because, to be honest, it was my mentality to some degree. When I committed to to a career in rap, I wasn't taking a vow of poverty. I saw it as another hustle, one that happened to coincide with my natural talents and the culture I love. I was an eager hustler and a reluctant artist. But the irony of it is that to make the hustle work, really work, over the long term, you have to be a true artist too. In the streets, there aren't written contracts. Instead, you live by certain codes. There are no codes and ethics in music because they are lawyers. People can hide behind their lawyers and contracts and then rob you blind. A lot of street cats came into the music game and expect a certain kind of honor and ethics, even outside of contracts. But in business, like they say, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. So I mind my business and I don't apologize for it. There's this sick fascination with the dead artist, the broke artist, the drugged out artist, the artist who blows all his money on drugs and big chains and ends up on a VH1 special, or artists so conflicted about making money from their art, which so often means making money from their pain and confusion and dreams, that they do stupid shit with it, set it on fire or something. This is a game people sometimes play with musicians, that to be real, to be authentic, you have to hate having money, or that success has to feel like such a burden you want to kill yourself. But whoever said that artists shouldn't pay attention to their business was probably someone with their hand in some artist's pocket. When I was a kid, my family loved sports. I played baseball with the Little League squad out in Brooklyn. My big brother Eric played basketball in junior and summer leagues and was a straight star. When we first moved to Marcy, my father set up a little basketball hoop in our apartment, and we would sweat it out right there in the living room like it was Madison Square Garden. But we never could fully dedicate ourselves to becoming true athletes. Life intervened. I hit the streets, but I still loved sports, playing them, watching them. I wasn't one of those cats who was too cool to lose his shit over a game. I cared. There's always been a connection between sports and the streets. When Biggie rapped in Things Done Changed that either you slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot, he was talking about the two paths out that most young black men think are open to them. The irony is that if you're slinging crack rock, you'll probably end up in jail. And if you got a wicked jump shot, you still won't make it to the NBA unless you're extremely lucky, like win the lottery lucky. But even if dreams of the NBA are one of the hoaxes played on young black boys, I also believe that there's a lot to be learned from elite athletes. Sports are one of the great metaphors for life, and watching athletes perform is like watching different ideas about life playing themselves out. Athletes aren't just fascinating for their physical skills, but for what their performances tell us about human potential and character. I am the Mike Jordan of recording. I know I'm not alone when I say this, but I absolutely love Michael Jordan. Kobe is impressive for his dedication to the game and has an outside chance to eclipse Jordan someday. And I think LeBron is the best of his generation. But as of now, Jordan's inarguably the greatest player to ever touch a basketball. What made his game magical is the way it spoke to deeper shit than just wins and losses. His career was a perfectly composed story about will. To see him come out of retirement after his father was buried, to come back and win championships, there was nothing better in the world. In 1998, when the Bulls were down by 3 in Game 6 of the finals with seconds left, and Jordan scored, stole the ball from Karl Malone, came down, crossed over Brian Russell, and hit the winning shot at the buzzer. Well, I could have laid down and died after that game. It was perfect. The first time I met Jordan was at St. John's University, where he was given a keynote address at their graduation one year. We talked briefly, but didn't really chop it up. A couple of months later in Chicago, I went to his restaurant at his invitation to have dinner with him. I had Tai Tai and my friend Juan with me, and I told Jordan that if I was going to sit and break bread with him, I'd have to be able to ask him anything. I meant anything. It was so perfect that I had Juan with me because he's a die-hard Knicks fan. And as much as he respected Jordan, he hated the way Jordan personally sat the Knicks down every year in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Juan is a real sports fan. He'd be sick for a week. I'm talking depressed. He wouldn't leave the house after his team lost. That night, he had to sit there and dine with his nemesis. Jordan told Juan the story of how he almost came to the Knicks. He said he was a second away from closing the deal. He was packing his bags to come to New York when Jerry Krause called and matched the Knicks' offer at the last minute. Juan looked like he was going to cry. I asked Jordan who was the hardest nigga that ever guarded him. He told me Joe Dumars. I found out how much Jordan loves Hakeem Olajuwon. He pointed out that he was a leader in steals, which is rare in the center position. I asked him to name his 5 favorite centers, the best games he's ever played, which championship meant the most to him. I got to be an unabashed fan. It was an absolute dream conversation for me. The thing that distinguished Jordan wasn't just his talent, but his discipline, his laser like commitment to excellence. That's something I always respect, especially in people who have great natural talents already. Making music requires a lot of that same discipline and commitment. It's true that I'm able to sometimes come up with songs in a matter of minutes after hearing a track, but that's a skill that I've honed over hundreds of hours of practice and work since I was 9. My earliest mentors in rap taught me that making music is work. Whether it was Jazz locking himself in a room working on different flows, or Big Daddy Kane taking the time to meticulously put together a stage show. There's unquestionably magic involved in great music, songwriting, and performances. Like those nights when a star athlete is totally in the zone and can't miss. But there's also work. Without the work, the magic won't come. There are 100 Harold Miners, no disrespect, for every Michael Jordan. I work goddamn hard. For instance, tours are the most lucrative aspect of a recording artist's career. You have a lot more control and fewer people are in your pockets as compared to album sales. It can also be stressful beyond belief. Every night you're in a different city, every crowd brings a different vibe, every show is subtly different. But at the same time, you have to hit the same marks night after night. Find a new way to get your own energy up when you're performing the same song you did the night before. It becomes less about your innate charisma and talent, although that's still required, and more about being able to meet the mental and physical challenge of it. A tour requires stamina, willpower, and the ability to self motivate, to hype yourself into game mode night after night. When you're on tours like the ones I've done over the last decade, you're like a professional athlete, except that night after night, you're the only one with the bat. When it comes to signing up new talent, that's what I'm looking for. Not just someone who has skill, but someone built for this life. Someone who has the work ethic and the drive. The gift that Jordan had wasn't just that he was willing to do the work, but he loved doing it because he could feel himself getting stronger, ready for anything. He left the game and came back and worked just as hard as he did when he started. He came into the game as a rookie of the year, and he finished off the last playoff game of his career with a shot that won the Bulls their sixth championship. That's the kind of consistency that you can get only by adding dead serious discipline to whatever talent you have.